Did you know the Thanos Gauntlet secretly returned in Fortnite? Let me explain. One of its abilities was the Power Stone that looked like this, but compared to Dragon Ball's Kamehameha and... it is identical, and that's not the only time Epic secretly returns something. Even an entire game mode was turned into a hidden feature. The floor is lava has returned every so often, most recently with Midas's LTM, but fans have been desperate for a way to get this permanently. Well, that's when you realize it's literally in game as we speak. By accepting the Ground is Lava Wastelander challenge, you can experience this on the BR map every match. The Star Wars fans have been pretty happy this year, especially with the massive May the 4th event, but one of the most memorable additions was back in Chapter 2. Fortnite dropped an entire POI in the map to celebrate Mando's bounty, letting us walk around Kit's Cantina. It was gone within weeks until the Mos Eisley Cantina secretly reappeared in 2024. By heading to the festival jam stage, you could chill out here and play music together. There were a ton of references and details too, fans loved it. One of the weirdest collabs was a forgotten mythic no one even talks about. We all know about the Futurama crossover and how unexpected it was, but you'll probably remember the amazing outfits like Fry, Bender, Leela. What people don't recall is Bender's shiny metal ray gun. This was only in game for a week, and if it feels really familiar, that's because it's a total reskin of Chapter 2's Chimera ray gun. It's been a while since we saw our friend Blevin, makes sense considering there's nothing left of the cube. Except this wasn't the last time we saw him. In fact, he's now under the ownership of Loki. One of the most interesting returns is on the Fortnite map as we speak. When the Iron Man roof beacons appeared, we all freaked out. It's obviously teasing the new Marvel season, but there's a key difference here. It's not actually the same beacon. If you compare our current one to the OG Stark panels from 2020, they are slightly different. Epic remade them from scratch just for Chapter 5. And there's a collab which immediately backfired. Nike dropped an Air Jordan bundle, which should have been loved by players, only for them to spot Swish, a skin which felt way too similar. I mean, the deja vu was unreal. Well, that's because when you put this side by side with Marius, it is literally the exact same outfit. This wasn't a reskin, it was a recolor. Now, there is one feature that everyone wishes was still around. When you downed an enemy in the early days, you had the choice of picking them up or shaking them down. This hasn't been in the game for a long time, and yet with the rec season, shakedowns have made a small cameo. Once you equip a car's turret, your character whips out the old tablet, Chapter 2 map included. Earlier this year, players were exploring the map only to notice a scar in the distance. Was it finally coming back? We've been desperate to get the OG scar again, but as we walked closer, the true nature was revealed. This was the Striker AR. Despite being an obvious ripoff, it had totally different stats, sounds, and was moddable, making this the new permanent version of the scar. And Fortnite has been pulling off these trolls a year before with the sharp-toothed shotgun. At a glance, you could already tell what people thought this was. We totally believed the pump was back, only to pick it up and get a nerf version with the same model. And I bet you had no idea that one of Fortnite's rarest items is hiding on the Chapter 5 map. The Eye of the Storm tracker was only in game for like 20 minutes, making this the most sought-after item ever. Instead, Fortnite turned this from a backpack to an actual weapon, giving us the Storm Scout Sniper Rifle. After a couple years, they realized this wasn't really working, so they changed the idea, turning it into a reality augment. Now we could finally see the next Storm Circle without picking up an item, yet this still wasn't right. Years of experimenting has finally led us to the latest version of Forecast Tower, which anyone can visit. Crazy that this all started with a backpack. We were also taken by surprise when the entire loot pool was updated, removing frenzy auto shotguns everywhere. We learned to accept this and moved on pretty quickly until a handful of players noticed something weird. Everything changed when they discovered the Oscar NPC. Talking to him or wiping him out was normal until you challenged him. Winning this duel would reward you handsomely. Now you gotta love when a secret return improves on the last design. The second the war bus was introduced to us, we got deja vu. It felt like we'd already drove this thing back at Chapter 3. Well, we basically kinda did with the armor battle bus, but Fortnite had some extra surprises in store. Not only did we have 2 heavy turrets to play with, but they changed the cowcatcher to a spike version. Okay, one of the strangest returns is on the map right now, and it's an insane callback to an unsolved Easter egg from Chapter 2. Back then, we could find a crash plane ripped to shreds near the lighthouse. It was here the entire time, even surviving the release of Coral Castle, and it was meant to showcase how Ego got onto the map. Fast forward to modern day, where fans began to explore the snowy mountains of Chapter 5, only to discover the same wreckage. And I'm not exaggerating, it's almost identical, with Fortnite choosing to paint this plane white instead. In fact, what happened to both these wreckages is also similar. While the first one fell down the side of Coral Castle and into the water, this new plane has completely slid down the mountain and into a lake. On the other side of the map, we were treated to a mini story storyline involving the return of Midas. But while we were excited to see the gang reunite, one item was missing: his classic drum gun. This was a staple of the spy season, so we visited Midas's NPC only to be handed nothing in return. It wasn't until a week later, when everyone had stopped visiting him, that Fortnite secretly updated Midas with the coveted mythic drum gun. Not a lot of people got around to buying this, and within 14 days, the entire POI had vanished. At least we thought that would happen with Gemini. This outfit was leaked for the longest time, with fans eventually accepting it would just never drop. That's until Astro Assassin released and everything began to make sense. They changed her design to avoid copyright. It's basically because Gemini had a lot in common with Rave May from Paladins. Like I said, we thought she'd never release because of this, and we definitely weren't expecting Billie Eilish to bring her back. Yeah, in the most random cameo possible, we checked her loading screen, and one person stood out in the crowd: Gemini. When you think about a season like Vibin, I bet you forgot about the secret OG POIs it had. Hidden in the forest, players are surprised to find old friends like the huge wooden chair. Sure was overgrown a little, but still perfectly recognizable. Kinda like the abandoned warehouse from Dusty Depot, just sitting here. And yet neither of these were as hidden as the rock formation across the road. From the right angle, you'd be able to tell exactly what this was. It was the shark. And Fortnite clearly loved doing this because they brought it back again in 2024 with the Leviathan. Not to mention, it even had the exact same chest spawn on the nose. I also bet you didn't realize a feature that could save your life in Chapter 5 is not original at all. The slurp cacti has been crucial when we need that tiny boost of health, but no one is talking about how this was basically in the game during the wild season. Now personally, I love Chapter 5's Easter egg that went totally under the radar. 4 years ago, we uncovered the existence of a strange chair. It had a bear on top, and every week, Fortnite would secretly update this by making it smaller. Literally got to the point where it was the size of an ammo box. Players loved this so much that Epic brought it back in Chapter 3, making it way harder to spot. We had to find it by looking in a bush. So fast forward to modern day, and why is this relevant? Well, now it's even harder to find. In fact, you probably didn't know this was even on the map. But if you check under one of the viaducts, you'll discover a familiar teddy bear.
Hello there.
Now, we have been waiting for the return of Fortnite's most sought-after weapon, the Zapatron. It has one of the weirdest stories to date, and despite the fact it was only in game for like 30 minutes, it has managed to show up basically every year. Whether it was floating in the ocean, appearing in a comic, or being locked behind a door in Imposters, we were just waiting for its latest appearance. And let me tell ya, I was not expecting it to be part of a Fallout collab. Gotta admit though, seeing the power armor holding it, it does make sense. But that is unlike the disaster that was sand tunneling. We all remember this as that one feature which had great potential, only to be ruined by glitches. It was disabled for most of the season, and we moved on, but Epic, they were not done with it. Little did we know sand tunneling was about to return after years of work, transforming it from sand to chrome, and now it even let us phase through walls. When Epic reuses items, it could trick us into thinking a new collab is in the works. Remember the Wolverine claws? The Mythic was pretty awesome, and when we heard news they had been re-added to the files, rumors went crazy. It was just before Fortnite Mares, and fans wondered if they were making a new Halloween Wolverine, or maybe even like Freddy Krueger, only for it to be something totally different, the Howler Claws. They weren't just like Wolverines, except they also had a sonar ability that can mark enemies. If anything, it kinda just made people want the originals back. There is a return which is so OG that everyone thought it was a new item. If you remember during the Chrome season, Epic dropped a ton of devices around the map known as D-launchers. It was basically just a slingshot that got you around without having to glide, yet this was not a new concept at all. In fact, it was one of the first ideas Fortnite ever implemented. Back in the very early days, we had the horizontal jump pad. It also turns out we're about to get the secret return of a creature that was meant to be dead. You don't need me to explain how beloved Klomba was. It literally crushed our hearts into pieces when we found his skeleton. Gotta admit, after years of teasers, no one was expecting his grand reveal to be Lego. But honestly, I can't wait. The leak roadmap image looks insane. But we already got the return of Midas's old crew. The yacht was not the only thing they brought with them. Fortnite secretly added a ton of classic items to the map, hidden on a place that fans have dubbed Easter Egg Island. It is full of callbacks like the Ghost Mug, Coral Castle Stones, and Cap and Carp sign. It was even more on the nose near the oil rig, with Epic leaving TNT in his welding mask on a chair. It was teasing her eventual release before she swept in and took the gang with her. Little trivia question: Metal Gear Solid and Predator, what do they have in common? Two wildly different franchises, and yet they both have the same Fortnite mythic. Originally, Predator had his own cloaking device, which was so underused that people barely remember it. This is why they dropped into the Wild season and had no idea the cloak gauntlets were not original at all. For some reason, Fortnite continued to rebrand these, releasing them a third time, but luckily, they decided to switch things up. Realizing no one wanted to use it, they turned the gloves into a device which also shot out an EMP. While that would have been great against cars, we have a pretty sick tool already, with fans loving the Boom Bolt. This crossbow has been a long time coming, especially as Fortnite don't have the best reputation with crossbows. They usually suck, but this time around they took inspiration from the classic mythic, the Boom Bow. Epic had already reskinned this, transforming it into a mechanical explosive bow, but this was not enough. It needed a friendlier package, leading us to the item we know and love today. Sometimes bringing an item back could be awkward, like when Fortnite dropped the Juby Slide emote.
Oh, we got a new emote. Oh my god, I know what this is. Didn't we have an emote very similar to this?
This confused thousands of people, as they could have sworn they already owned it. So they checked their lockers and realized they had a completely different item known as the Side Shuffle. And look, we're only a couple months out from the second part of the Marvel season, with fans desperate to see nostalgic mythics coming back. One of those was the Silver Surfer's board, and yet little do they know, it wasn't even original in its own season. Now sure, we've gotten reskins of this time and time again, like the Nimbus Cloud, but Epic were truly lazy when they gave us the Witch's Broom. This was released in the exact same season as the Surfer's board, and they didn't even change it up. The cooldown and mechanics were exactly the same. Yeesh. How many of these did you know before I told you? Let me know in the comments. It's been Tommy, and keep it here on Top 5 Gaming.